Namaskar. Today we are going to discuss about the concepts of preparedness and mitigation. In disaster management, we have three phases: disaster, pre-disaster, during disaster and post-disaster. The cycle of the disaster management, you can just have a look that pre-disaster we have mitigation, preparedness and prevention. Today's lecture we are going to discuss about the definitions, what are the implications of that activity and what we can do in that particular phase of disaster management. Let us discuss about the preparedness. How we can define preparedness? It is basically the arrangements to ensure that should an emergency occur, all those resources and services which are needed to cope with the effect can be efficiently mobilized and deployed. We can further define the preparedness as measures to ensure that should an emergency occur, community, resources and services are capable of coping with the effect. Maybe we are living in the earthquake prone area or flood prone area, but preparedness plays a major role. We remember in 1993 there was a Latur earthquake, and this earthquake has happened in the area where the people had no experience about the event. We made our houses, constructed our houses which was not resistant to the earthquake. An earthquake happened and many people died out of it. Preparedness, it plays a major role. People more prepared, more they will be safe. Earthquake which is happening in developed countries like Japan, USA, earthquake occurs but the people are prepared, and because of that the less and less losses were reported. Seattle earthquake and Gujarat earthquake, both earthquakes were of moderate nature, but the impacts were very different because Seattle was ready for the disaster and people were prepared for it, but Gujarat we were not prepared about it. So here you can see how primarily preparedness is playing a major role in disaster management. Disaster management is concern of everybody, preparedness is concern to everybody. It is not that only the government, only the community, only the corporate world, private bodies, they are concerned, but everybody is equally concerned. Yes, but the roles and responsibility might be differing from each other, but it is concern of everybody. More you are prepared, lesser would be the losses and destruction. As I gave you the example, Gujarat earthquake and Seattle. Even the Japan is always visited by the earthquakes, but you can see how the community is prepared and the less destruction and economic losses are the very good example of the preparedness. More the awareness, more would be the mitigation efforts and lesser would be the vulnerability. If people are more aware about the situation, they will be more ready, and once they will be more ready, the losses will be also significantly very low. Prior to that preparedness, we require to have hazard, vulnerability and risk assessment, because I told this particular HVR, it is the diagnostic tool on the basis of which we go for preparing the community, preparing the stakeholders, preparing the system for disaster response. Just have a look. What is the relationship between the preparedness and the losses? In the screen you can see preparedness level, preparation level is given, and pre-disaster, how much in the green color you can see what is the preparedness level, but during disaster how is the loss scenario. But if you see the preparedness level red color, if your preparedness level is very high, the losses will be substantially low, the destruction level will be also very low. What are the principles of the preparedness? Principles of preparedness: no preparation is ever enough. Maybe in the beginning we opt for reduction in the life losses, but as the time passes, we are not only concerned with the loss of lives, but also loss of the livestock. Might be after that our level will increase and we will look for the reduction of losses of infrastructure. Maybe after that we will be looking for losses, reduction of losses in terms of economy, business, even that opportunities. So those are one by one it is increasing. So no preparedness is ever enough. Mitigation is better than rescue. If we are better ready prior to disaster, the rescue efforts will be very, very less. So mitigation is better than your rescue. Rehearsal improves the chance of survival. If you are continuously, routine basis doing mock drilling, search and rescue operations, first aid practices, then it will increase the chance of survival of the victims. Response has to be done without any delay, and that's why we are targeting towards the golden hour concept and platinum hour concept, where 15 minutes are the time given to the search and rescue teams, and people are required to be evacuated from the debris or the dangerous area. For preparedness, anticipation is very, very important, and anticipation leads to planning. Once you anticipate that, well, this is the area which is prone to floods, prone to any type of disaster, then it leads towards the planning, and planning leads towards the preparedness. Once you have the planning, you prepare yourself, and preparedness leads to mitigation and response. So once you have preparation, then it will be leading towards a better mitigation and response strategy. What are the pillars for preparedness? What pillars you should take into account? Good HVRC. If you have the good hazard, vulnerability and risk assessment, your preparedness will be also very good and efficient. Developing rescue resource networking. Maybe in the society you have many of the resources, and those resources are required to be pooled during the disaster, and prior to that you need to have lot of exercises, lot of practices are required to be done, so that those resources can be effectively, on time, optimally utilized for response. Preparing detailed DM plans. If you want to do a better preparedness, then you need to have a proper contingency plan, proper disaster management plan, that what resources, who will be responsible, from where you will be deploying the resources, you have a very clear idea about it. If you want to have the better preparedness, you need to have a better warning system. There are certain disasters where you can get the warning, and certain disasters where you don't get the warning. Like earthquake, it is difficult to say that you get a warning. At this moment we don't have that good technology which can really help you out in establishing the warning. Tsunami, yes, we have the warning, and you can get a warning about hours together. So if you have the good warning system, it is going to reflect in terms of in better preparedness. Deploying effective and efficient communication, that is also very important. Tsunami, Southeast Asia, we had enough time to evacuate people if we would have communicated properly to the local administration, local community. Then during the disaster time we had more than an hour together, and in around 3 hours of time from the source to that particular eastern coast, we had about hundreds of minutes time, but because it was not communicated, we could not survive and we could not save many of the lives. Greater use of technology. Now we have a space technology, we have telecom technology, IT technology. if we have a better use of this particular technology, your preparedness level will be also very good. Coordination between the various agencies and the departments and within the organization, that is also very important. For preparedness, you need to have a better coordination. You may have vertical coordination, you may have horizontal coordination, but those coordinations are essentially required to have a really achieving the effectiveness of your preparedness. Developing command and control mechanism. Many times we find that there is no coordination while disaster response is going on. We require a very, very strong and efficient control and command system. And one of the example is incident command system, where the work is not duplicated, a particular time frame has been fixed up, and in that particular time frame you have to perform the duties and with the least and optimal resources. For better preparedness, resulting to a better disaster response, you require increased awareness. Instituting practices, we have to enforce, we have to make the system of practices, conduct rehearsals, mock drills, that is also very important, and formulation and implementation of techno-legal regime. What do you mean by techno-legal regime? Here it comes into the picture of how technology is legalized. Now Bureau of Indian Standard has developed certain set of guidelines, certain codes have been prescribed so that you can make disaster resistant houses, infrastructures, and standards have been established. Now it is the responsibility of the local authorities, state government, central government to look for those particular norms, guidelines which is completely supported by the technology, the knowledge, and if we enforce the techno-legal regime, you will find that a better development will be there and the development will be sustained one. A strengthening of the response mechanism. Talking about response mechanism, here you may have the community based certain organizations who are taking part in response. It might be your civil defense, fire brigade, or your paramilitary forces, police department, health department. So these are the system of response, and how better we can strengthen them, how better we can create capacity building among them about the disaster response. Implementation of legal provisions, how authority, now state authority is there, state district authority is there, even national disaster management authority is there. So how better legal provisions can be made so that whatever development which is taking place, it is sustained one, it is better one. Health preparedness, all health departments, all health functionaries, they have to be very, very active so that during the time of requirement all necessary support can be provided by the health functions. So this is all about preparedness, how we can better prepare the community, better prepare the system, and your disaster response, it is going to perform better once your foundation work, that is the preparedness level, preparedness activities are firm enough. Let us discuss about your mitigation, how we define mitigation. In short, I can say mitigation is always a proactive measures. How we can define mitigation? Mitigation is something like measures taken in advance of a disaster aimed at decreasing or eliminating its impact on society and environment. It means that it's an intervention, man-made interventions. Because of that, the impact of disaster can be eliminated or it can be reduced substantially. There are two types of mitigation. One we define structural and second we define non-structural. A structural mitigation, how we define? A structural mitigation is something which is related to structures. It might be in terms of developing the construction, constructing the houses, constructing the infrastructure as per the disaster resistant technology. Maybe we can consider the impacts of disaster and widely known floods, earthquake, cyclones, or might be explosions also. With respect to these parameters and this type of hazards, we need to go for assessing the suitability and strength of the structures like buildings or infrastructure, and just comparing with respect to the dynamism of the floods, earthquake, cyclones, explosions, might be sometimes landslides too, how the building is going to perform. So broadly, here we are looking at how we can better develop the disaster resistant construction, and if the system is already existing, how better we can strengthen it. So these are the two parameters which is coming on the picture. Now non-structural measures, how we define it. Non-structural measures are something which is not visible, but it grows and it develops within the system, so that the system is having, or system develops the resilience towards the disaster. It might be in terms of building bylaws or building codes, building regulations. Suppose the area is prone to floods and earthquake, how and what type of interventions are required? Maybe the soft interventions are something like building codes, where whatever the construction you do, that construction should be compliance of all BIS codes, like in general BIS 1893-2002. This is the code we are following it for earthquake resistant construction. And all the urban bodies, they are supposed to follow that, and based on that particular formats and the guidelines and all norms, the building has to be constructed. Even those codes are the platforms or the benchmark or the platform. It has been yardstick, it has been established by the local urban bodies, and they evaluate all the new proposals with respect to those bylaws. Maybe all legislations, if you are not constructing the house as per the building bylaws, you will not be given any clearance, and neither you are going to get that particular commencement certificate, completion certificate of the houses. Your property taxes will be also charged very high. Public education. Public education is very, very important, and here not only the community but all the professional bodies, they can introduce the disaster resistant technology and what roles and responsibility an individual will be having for disaster response. That comes under that way. Public information, let the public be not ignorant about the disaster, and they know about what to do and how to do and what is required at this moment. So they should know the roles and responsibility, what they need to do, what they expect from the others. That should be very clear. Tax incentives and disincentives, these are the also ways by which you can really control if some subsidies can be given if you go for earthquake resistant construction or disaster resistant construction. If you are not obeying the building bylaws, you will be charged a higher tariff of the property taxes. Then insurance. The people who have made their houses as per the disaster resistant, the government can provide some certain subsidies. They can go for reducing the tariff for insurance. Incentives and disincentives, I talked about it. And then zoning and land use management. Maybe land use management and zoning, it is important aspect, but it is required to be enforced. All local bodies, they require to know about it, and within a particular specified defined zones, the houses are required to be constructed, and proper land use management is required to be followed by the local urban bodies or the state bodies. So this is, we discussed about the non-structural and structural disaster mitigation approach. Now preparedness, mitigation we have seen. Let us look at the prevention. What do you mean by prevention? Prevention is something like at the source itself you try to take necessary action. Because of that there will not be any chance of disaster to happen. Many of the disasters we have seen, like Bhopal gas tragedy, maybe Chernobyl nuclear explosion, or it might be many of the fire accidents and industrial accidents which has already taken place in many parts of the country and internationally also. Where we lacked about on-site and off-site emergency management plan execution and implementation. Community living nearby, they were ignorant about the hazards and threats, and antidotes are not clear to the people. And because of that we found many people lost their life while during this particular Bhopal gas tragedy. We need to have on-site and off-site emergency management plans. If you go for a better fire disaster prevention, mostly disaster prevention works with the industrial disasters, and here on-site and off-site emergency management planning is required to be done. Whatever you do within the premises of the hazardous factory, it comes under the on-site, where everybody knows about their roles and responsibilities and what they need to do during the emergency time. But if you are talking about off-site, maybe once the toxic substance has been released and it is radiating and it is going out of the campus of the hazardous substance factory or whatsoever, so local outside people will be also affected by the disaster. And if they are going to be affected, what is required to be done? How the information will be transferred to the community those are going to be victimized? What type of additional support you will be looking from the local urban bodies or local governance or the district administration? How you will be evacuating those people who are going to be affected by the toxic substances or corrosive substances? What type of treatment you are going to do? Those things all are coming under on-site and off-site emergency management plan. You require to do the safety auditing. Whatever the industries are there, you need to have the regular practice of safety auditing, so that if there is a fault you can identify and you can rectify those faults. Crisis communication. Mostly what is happening that industrial sector, industries, they are private sectors or the government sector, they are having their own world, and usually they don't interact with the outside agencies. And once the disaster comes and it is out of control, then it takes a lot of time to really build up the relationship and then respond to the disaster. So that is also very important. And warning communication is also important, that what are the people going to be affected, what type of problems will be there, and what are the antidotes. This is also one of the important issue that in disaster prevention we need to do. Then one important issue is that the scenario study of disasters. Might be you are having 18 metric tons of ammonia stored in some campus, and there is a disaster, and because of that there is a leakage in the ammonia and it is going to widespread. So if it is widespread, how much area it is going to cover and what will be the impact of it? Unless until we are not defining those things, we will not be in position to do justice to the disaster response. And for better disaster response, we need to have a very clear picture of what is the scenario of the disaster. So I can say, once the scenario is clear, then you can go for rehearsals and mock drill. It helps to attain the higher proficiency in the response. There is an important aspect of preparedness. It is very important. I can cite you one very interesting but the real story. 1998, South Tower of World Trade Center, New York had a bomb blast and 8 people died. Stanley Morgan had occupied 22nd floor in that particular building. Their VP security, Rick Roscorra, suggested a plan of evacuation in emergency, and the plan was accepted by the director board. Roscorra get everybody to practice the plan every quarterly. Employees of the Stanley Morgan were fed up with the rehearsal and they protested. Roscorra did not bother about it. But 11 September 2001, 8:45 AM, North Tower was hit by a plane. Roscorra ordered evacuation. And by 9 hours 01 minute, South Tower was also hit. By the time, out of 2,700 people of this Stanley Morgan, 2,693 people employees were taken out of that particular building, moved to the safer place. But Raskolra and 6 people other who died because when the building was collapsed, because those people were busy in evacuating all the people out of this particular dangerous area. So you can understand how basically this particular mock drill and preparedness helped. Out of 2,700 people, 2,693 people were saved because of this mock drilling and rehearsal practices. Maybe in the beginning you will be having a lot of resistance from the people for whom you are doing it, but it will help because disaster comes only once, and if you are performing, if you are better prepared, you will be performing better, and if you are not, it will not give you another chance. So here we have seen the importance of mitigation, preparedness and prevention. So today's lecture, we discussed the phases of disaster. In pre-disaster phase, preparedness, mitigation and prevention, we discussed about it. What are the basic components and the features of preparedness, mitigation, what are the mitigation, some illustration, we discussed about it, and finally we talked about the prevention and a true story about preparedness, rehearsal and mock drill. It helped, and how we saved about 2,693 people out of this WTC collapse. So this was all about the preparedness, mitigation and prevention. Thank you very much.